1 minute later, the person in bed will die. At 4 a.m., the school's loudspeaker suddenly announced something that woke everyone up and made several roommates grumble, complaining about the radio station acting up in the middle of the night, pulling an ill-timed prank with no regard for others' sleep. I didn't take the notice seriously at first and simply got up to go to the bathroom, but when I came back, the dormitory was utterly silent, with blood dripping down every bedboard. Eric's reminder, the main story is coming. Subscribe and listen to more suspense or horror stories. The moonlight was cold, and the small dormitory was filled with the smell of blood. All three of my roommates had stopped breathing without exception. I was stunned, realizing the broadcast announcement was no joke. Those who stayed in bed would really die. Meanwhile, a string of screams and roars quickly flooded my ears and spread across the entire dormitory building. Obviously, everyone who had violated the loudspeaker's rules had perished, their bloodshot eyes looking terrifying. I quickly took out my phone to call the police, only to find there was no signal and I couldn't get through to anyone. I rushed toward the door to escape this horrifying place, yet the moment I pushed open the dormitory door, a new broadcast came from the loudspeaker, freezing me in my tracks. Attention, all students. The blood-red dormitory general rules are as follows. First, a new rule will be announced every hour on time. Listen carefully and abide by it strictly, for violators will die on the spot. When a new rule is released, the previous one will be automatically void, and rules will never repeat. Thirdly, without permission, students are forbidden to leave their dormitory, or they will die. Fourth, do not attack dormitory managers, security guards, or other staff. Fifth, the dormitory rules last for 5 hours, ending at dawn at 9 a.m., and all surviving students may leave safely afterward. After hearing the rules, I immediately pulled my hand back from the door. Scared out of my wits, leaving the dormitory meant certain death, and I had narrowly avoided ending up covered in blood like my three roommates. Luckily, the latest rule had been announced right at 4 o'clock, with the next one arriving in 40 to 50 minutes. I slowly sat back down in the dormitory, breathing heavily as I finally calmed down. I opened my phone to search for information but still had no network connection. I leaned out over the balcony and shouted a few times, yet received no response, only hearing all kinds of chaotic wailing and roaring mingling across the campus, blurred and disorganized. It was clear that most people on the nearby 2 or 3 floors were already dead. The distant sounds were filled with despair, muffled as if blocked by some invisible barrier, making any communication impossible. I felt as if I were stranded on a hellish island, forced to face all the remaining rules alone, overwhelmed by a strong sense of powerlessness. Just then, my phone suddenly let out a clear beep with an incoming call from a stranger. I stared at my phone in confusion. There was no signal, so where could this call have come from? With doubt, I clicked the answer button, and a crisp voice came through the receiver. "Hello, my name is Sarah, room 203 in building 7. I stood up at once, shocked that the caller was from the same building, and replied quickly, "Hello, I'm Luna, living in room 609, building 7. How did you get my number?" Sarah explained that she had been bored before and set up a local area network call group that could connect to nearby devices, covering almost the entire building 7. It had only been for fun at first, but had now become incredibly useful. She said that in such an emergency, panic would only get us defeated one by one, so we should unite to fight for survival together. I readily agreed, knowing that trapped in such a terrifying atmosphere, staying alone to face these deadly rules would easily break one's mind and plunge them into despair, making it far more reassuring to have allies to communicate with. As the signal spread farther, many more people in the building joined the group call, with over 20 survivors supporting and encouraging each other, making the waiting time less unbearable. Soon it was 5 o'clock, and the shrill loudspeaker sounded right on time, marking the end of the first round of rules, leaving only 352 people alive. Everyone gasped in shock. The sudden midnight bedtime rule had caught countless students off guard. Many had ignored it, and some hadn't even woken up. Out of thousands of students, only a few hundred remained in the blink of an eye, leaving everyone wondering how many would survive after all the rules had run their course. Before we could ponder further, the second round of rules began. For the next hour, the school would conduct a dormitory check with each building assigned a dormitory supervisor, and all students must stay in bed and cooperate fully with the manager. Upon hearing this, everyone quickly climbed back into their beds. The second rule seemed simple at first glance: just stay in bed for an hour, and we would be safe. Soon, a soft knock came through the group call, and a student from room 102 whispered that the dormitory manager was at his door. No one dared make a sound, holding their breath to listen closely to what would happen next. A strange, dull voice suddenly rang out. "Is the person in bed number 1 here?" The student replied, "I'm here." "Good, then you can die." The whole group was instantly stunned. Why was the dormitory manager killing someone for obeying? Before we could react, heart-wrenching cries for help filled the receiver, followed by the sound of a bedboard splintering. In less than 2 minutes, room 102 fell completely silent. He had stayed in bed as told, yet still lost his life. I gripped my phone tightly and took a deep breath, realizing the second round of rules was far more complicated than it seemed. Sensing everyone's rising panic, Sarah spoke up again, pointing out that the rule required staying in bed and cooperating with the dormitory manager, and the trap must lie in the second half of the sentence, yet none of us could figure out what exactly counted as cooperation. Meanwhile, the dormitory manager had already moved to the next dormitory, and a trembling voice came over the call, confused as to why he had gone to room 306 out of numerical order. The manager's oppressive tone echoed once more, "Is the occupant of the third bed here?" The student in room 306 hesitated for a long time, choosing to answer the opposite of the student in room 102 to avoid the same fate. "No, I'm not here." The dormitory manager let out a cold laugh, and we heard the clink of metal. "Why refuse to cooperate with my work? Aren't you lying quietly in bed right now?" Blood-curdling screams echoed through the building as the manager claimed another victim. Someone in the group couldn't help cursing, frustrated that answering yes meant death and answering no also meant death, leaving us with no clear way to cooperate. Anxiety spread rapidly through the phone call, and I rubbed my temples, shocked by how dangerous this round was. It had looked similar to the first rule on the surface, yet the manager had already started killing within 5 minutes. Only over 20 people were left in Building 7, and at a rate of 1 death every 2 minutes, none of us would last the full hour unless we found a solution soon. Cold sweat soaked through my back as I racked my brain for an answer, my hands trembling at the thought that he could knock on my door any minute. Sarah, who had started the group, was also constantly thinking and muttering to herself but could not find the answer, leaving us all helpless as we watched the manager roam freely from room to room. For 40 minutes, the trapped survivors tried every method they could think of covering themselves with quilts to hide, shouting their names and student IDs loudly, even mustering the courage to make physical contact with the manager, but all attempts were futile. I had thought the more than 20 united survivors would have a fighting chance in this chaotic dormitory building, yet before the second round ended, only Sarah and I remained alive, waiting silently for our inevitable fate with bated breath. Then the scraping sound of metal footsteps finally stopped outside my door, filling me with despair. Just as the footsteps came to a halt, a sudden idea flashed into my mind. The moment the manager knocked, I quickly got up, muted my phone, climbed onto one of my dead roommate's beds, and lay down beside the cold corpse. The stench of blood filled my nostrils as stale blood stained my clothes, and I stayed perfectly still, waiting quietly for the manager to enter. He glanced at my empty original bed and spoke his creepy line, "Is bed number 3 occupied?" I gritted my teeth, refusing to answer or make a sound, clearly spotting the bloody bone cleaver in his hand. After a minute of silence, the dormitory manager grinned, making my heart skip a beat in fear of being discovered. But to my relief, he raised his cleaver and hacked wildly at my empty bed, effortlessly splitting the upper bunk bedboard and the desk beneath it into pieces. After reducing the entire bed to wreckage, he let out a chuckle and turned to leave. Once his figure was completely gone, I quickly climbed out of the pool of blood, turned my phone's volume back on, and told Sarah the secret to passing this round. A cool wind blew into the dormitory through the empty doorway, and I slumped against the wall, letting out a long sigh of relief after narrowly escaping death. I realized we had all fallen into a fixed mindset from the start. The first round's simplicity had made us overlook hidden traps in the wording, automatically assuming the dormitory manager's role was just routine inspection. In reality, the rules never specified his job duties, and the moment he appeared wielding a deadly weapon, we should have realized his true purpose was to kill and eliminate all surviving students. The squeaking metal sound whenever he approached a dorm door was nothing but a death warning. Simply staying in our own beds and letting the manager carry out his inspection was a dead end, yet the rules strictly forbade us from leaving our beds, leaving seemingly nowhere to hide. In that critical moment, I had figured out the only way out: take the place of the dead. Since my other 3 roommates were already deceased and would not be targeted by the manager, lying on their beds and blending in with the corpses allowed me to follow the rule of staying in bed while also cooperating with the manager as he destroyed my original empty bed. After hearing my analysis, Sarah sighed in admiration, saying she was lucky to have created the group and obtained my key information. Otherwise, she would not have survived this round. I shook my head, telling her her group was far more valuable. Sharing information gave us room to analyze and reference strategies. If I had been forced to wait alone in silence and face the manager's questioning without any support, I would never have had time to figure out the rules and would have been killed instantly. With more than 10 minutes left until the second round ended, the dormitory manager finished all inspections and left the building entirely. We each lay on our deceased roommates' beds, quietly discussing what future rules we might face, and during our conversation, Sarah suddenly said she had tried expanding the LAN's range and unexpectedly connected to the signal from Building 8. She recalled there was a row of tall, dense cypress trees separating the 2 buildings, blocking sight and sound normally, and Building 8 was the girls' dormitory. She had sent out group invitations for a long time before a single lonely avatar finally joined the call, with a clear female voice coming through the receiver. Sarah repeated her usual introduction first. "Hello, I'm Sarah, room 203 of Building 7. I set up this LAN call group out of boredom before, I then gave my simple introduction. Hello, I'm Luna, room 609,
massive
building 7.
amplitude on
The
that
other
core.
party hesitated for a moment before introducing herself as Zoe from room 401, building 8. We waited 2 or 3 more
There's the
minutes,
double
but no one
backflip.
else from
Lots of
building 8 joined the group, leading us to guess their situation was even grimmer than ours. Only Zoe had survived the entire building. With no way to communicate or share information, facing the murderous dormitory manager alone made her survival nothing short of unimaginable. According to Zoe's account, after the first round, only one person had survived on each of the floors adjacent to hers, and they had kept intermittent contact by shouting loudly through their windows. To get closer to the window for easier communication, the brave Zoe had simply lain down on her dead roommate's bed. When the dormitory manager arrived, she had keenly noticed the hidden murder weapon behind him, with blood constantly dripping onto the ground. Sensing danger, she stayed perfectly still, shrinking into the corner without making a sound and managing to survive after a tense minute. The 2 survivors next door were not so fortunate. Even with Zoe's silent reminders, they had stayed in their own beds and were ruthlessly killed anyway, confirming our grim predictions about the mortality rate. At 6:10, the loudspeaker rang on time, ending the second round of rules with only 28 people left alive across the entire campus. All of us gasped in shock. Out of thousands of students in the huge school, only a handful remained after just 2 deadly rounds. The cruel rules gave us no time to grieve before the loudspeaker blared again to announce the third round, ordering everyone to head to the bathroom for a relaxing hot shower to relieve fatigue. This round had no complicated requirements other than showering continuously for more than 25 minutes, with the speaker wishing us all a pleasant bath. I subconsciously shuddered upon hearing this. After the harrowing first 2 rounds, none of us dared to underestimate any rule, knowing the more casual the announcement sounded, the deadlier the hidden danger lurking beneath. When I opened the bathroom door, I witnessed an odd sight. The regular shower switches were gone, replaced by an electronic screen embedded in the wall displaying 2 lines of text. The upcoming 2-minute water temperature would be selected, and we had to choose whether to take the shower this round, with a warning that once a choice was made, it must be followed through on pain of death. A rapid countdown flashed on the screen, pressuring us to make an immediate decision. Zoe analyzed over the call that choosing to shower meant enduring whatever water temperature was selected for the full 2 minutes, which was clearly the round's hidden trap. An extremely high temperature would turn the shower into unbearable torture. Sarah agreed and suggested we all choose not to shower first to observe the pattern, and we all reached a consensus to select no when the countdown ended. A new line of text popped up immediately. The selected water temperature was 70 degrees Celsius. Scalding heat waves billowed from the shower head, churning up terrifying steam, and I gasped in terror. 70-degree hot water was agonizing just to stand near, and I would have suffered severe skin burns if I had chosen to shower. Sarah calmly explained the temperature risks. The ideal water temperature for humans is 37 to 40 degrees Celsius. Cold showers can shrink pores and raise blood pressure but are not fatal, while temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius risk burns with prolonged contact, even if 2 minutes might be barely endurable. Above 55 degrees Celsius becomes extremely dangerous, causing rapid redness and swelling of the skin with unavoidable pain. Temperatures over 60, especially 70 degrees, are untouchable, capable of causing deep tissue burns within 30 seconds that would leave one disabled even if not immediately killed, dooming them in future rule rounds. I nodded in agreement after her explanation as the first 2-minute shower cycle ended, the screen resetting and starting a second countdown. We still dared not take risks and chose no again, and the selected temperature was a frigid 9 degrees Celsius. Cold water splashed across the floor, filling us with slight regret. 9 degrees was uncomfortable but not life-threatening, easily survivable for 2 minutes. We needed to accumulate 25 full minutes of shower time within the hour, and every time we avoided a dangerous temperature, we missed a perfectly safe chance to make progress. Yet none of us dared choose randomly, terrified of landing on an unbearable 90-degree boil that would cook us alive in minutes. The third round confirmed our fears with a near-boiling 98 degrees Celsius temperature, making us wince. I tried guessing an alternating high-low temperature pattern, only for the fourth round to disprove it with a terrifying 83 degrees Celsius temperature, thick steam filling the entire bathroom. Oh my head!